Okay, today we're going to continue with 11.1, which is going to continue to graph. And we are going to continue to talk about y equals mx plus b. So remember, slope is what m stands for. And b stands for your y-intercept. For your slope, remember we write this as a fraction or a whole number, never a decimal. And your y-intercept is always going to be 0 and some number. And you graph your y-intercept first. So let's start with this example of 3y plus 6x equals 24. Now remember, in order to graph, it must always say y equals mx plus b. So your equation always must be in this format. So right now, it's not. So you need to make it say y equals. So you need to think back to chapter 10, and we need to rearrange this in order to get y alone. And when we do that, we're using order of operations, and we're using inverse. So I'm going to start with addition and subtraction. So I'm going to first move this 6x to the other side by adding a negative 6x to both sides. So that when I have this new equation, it will be 3y equals, now remember we put that variable first, so I'm going to do negative 6x plus 24. Your y is not alone. This has to say 1y equals, not 3y. So finally, we're going to divide by 3. And when we divide by 3, we divide all terms by 3. So we get y equals negative 2x plus 8. So now we are going to graph that. So I'm going to take that equation that we just found. I'm going to start by identifying my m, my slope, and my b, or my y-intercept. So remember, your m, or your slope, is always attached to x. So my slope is negative 2, or you can think of this as negative 2 over 1. And my b, or my y-intercept, is 8, or think of this as 0, 8. So I'm going to start with my b. I'm going to graph 0, 8. So I've just made my point at 0, 8. Now I have to use my slope. Now this is saying a negative. So if I think a negative direction is moving down, so if I go down 2, I then need to move in the positive direction 1. So I'm going to go down 2 over 1. I can go down 2 again and then over 1. I also could do the opposite of, if I go up 2, I then need to still move in a negative direction. So going left once. There's your linear equation, and you're done. Let's try another one. Let's do negative 2y minus 9x equals 10. So again, we needed to make this say y equals mx plus b. So we got to get that y alone. And I'm going to start off by doing SAO. So I have negative 2y plus negative 9x equals 10. So I'm going to start off by adding a 9x to both sides, so that I have negative 2y equals 9x plus 10. Then I need to divide by a negative 2 to every term. So that negative is going to move with the 2. So I'm left with y equals, and I'm going to write this as negative 9 over 2x plus, now 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. So now here we can go ahead and graph that equation. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's graph this equation. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to see if you can identify your slope, your m, and your b, or your y-intercept. So go ahead and do that now. Alright, your slope should be negative 9 over 2, and we can leave it like that. And our b, or our y-intercept, is negative 5, or 0, negative 5. I want you to see if you can graph the first thing on your own. Alright, so you should have graphed b first, so you should have started at 0 and gone down 5. So I'm right here. Now again, my slope is negative. So in this case, it's going to be really hard for me to move down in a negative direction. So instead, I'm going to move up 9. And since I went in a positive direction, I then needed to move left or right in a negative. And since left is negative, I'm going to make that point here. And 6. I can only go up 6, so I can guess it's going to be up around here a little bit. Your graph paper tonight is going to be easier if you have a problem like this. But here's your line with about 3 points on it. Okay, let's end with this example of 4y equals 5x. So in this case, all I need to do in order to get y alone is to divide by 4. So I get y equals 5/4 x. So let's take that equation and now we are going to graph it. So I still can find my slope and my y-intercept. Again, that slope is attached to the x. So our slope is 5/4. And since we don't have a constant or a number all by itself, our b is just going to be 0. So we're going to start off by graphing 0. And now let's use that slope to go up 5 in a positive direction. And then we need to go in another positive direction because both 5 and 4 are positive. I could go up 5 again, and then to the right 4, and there are your 3 points. Or you can go down 5, and then to the left 4. So then I have 4 points. Make my line through it, and we are done. So at this point, you can now do your exit slip.